Council starting things up. We'll wait a few minutes. Hey, everybody, we're starting a little bit early. Parchelle is joining us. There's Parchelle. There she is.
Hi, Parchelle.
Hey.
You're a featured person for the day. What's going on with your camera?
I'm trying to. My computer has to reset, so for in the meantime, I'm just on my laptop. So hello.
Hi. All right, cool.
Super excited to talk today about meditation. How's my audio? Is it okay for now?
It's okay.
Switched over.
Yeah, it's good for now. And when we can switch over, we will. So let's do our funky cool intro thing, and we'll say we're starting from here.
Okay.
Here we go. This podcast is part of the Shareable Podcast Network. Learn more at shareable.fm. Cool. Welcome back to the Heroic Council. My name is Jeff Garrett, and I am hosting. Am I hosting today, or are you hosting today, Sarah? Should we switch spots? Who's hosting?
Technically, Parchelle is hosting herself, but I think we can ask great questions because I know I have a lot about meditation. So.
Right, you're going in the big seat, and we're gonna put ourselves off to the side.
Yeah,
just like that, and you're gonna lead us in a conversation around today's topic. So I'll just quickly introduce today's topic. We're going to be talking about meditation, mindfulness, all that kind of big broad topic of observing your thoughts and such. And this was a topic that you conceived of, came up with, thought was a good move for us to talk about. And it's actually something that's been on my mind recently. I actually just released a blog post about it today. And I know Sarah is super curious about it as well. So why don't you set us up for it? But first, for those of you that are listening, tuning in, just a reminder that every Monday at 2:00 p.m., you can tune in to see us live talking about all the different things we're talking about. You can chat with us, whether you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, anywhere, Periscope. Wherever you see this video live, you can actually just post right in the comments of whatever that is. We will see it. And if it's a really awesome question, we just learned that we can put it right up on the screen. So you could be famous. You could be famous. And if you really love the show, if you've been enjoying it, please subscribe to us on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and tell us in the review how much you love us and why you love us and all those sorts of good things. So without further ado, Parchelle, take us away.
Love it. Thank you, Jeff. This is probably one of my favorite things to talk about. And what I want to first open up with is the question of how you first got introduced to meditation, when you first came across it. My experience was I had heard of meditation, and it's something that you would see on TV, something you make fun of, these people who would go away in these temples and live to themselves and just sit in silence all day. But I remember being at it was like a business networking workshop or something like that. And there was a guy who got up and he used his 30 seconds of his introduction to talk about how grateful he was for meditation. And I thought, first of all, that was a waste of your introduction. Secondly, that's just weird. That's just woo-woo stuff. I just completely dismissed him and thought he was a dork. So fast forward in the past couple of years now, meditation has been something that is really a part of my day-to-day. It's part of my life, and honestly don't know how it could exist without sort of this practice. And so this has been really cool for me. So it's been, like I said, about a couple of years now of consistent, every day or every other day I'm spending time meditating. So what about you guys? What's been your introduction to meditation?
So I'm very much into yoga, and I do yoga every day. I try to get my weights or cardio workout done and then take part of my exercise time to do yoga. I think it's, great for my muscles, feels good. I'm sitting at a desk all day, and generally a small, minute to do at the end of the yoga is for meditation. My challenge is that I really feel like I haven't been successful with meditation. I respect it. I understand it. I get it, but I just really haven't found the part that's right for me because I just can't like turn my mind off. So I would say I'm a little bit exposed to it because of the yoga, and I like want to do more of it, but it's just haven't found the fit. And I'm so curious to hear about both of your experiences because, like I said, I just have so much respect for it, and I want to devote a little bit more time of my day to it.
I probably first heard about it, or at least saw about it. I used to watch a lot of like kung fu movies and stuff, and it's like real big in like kung fu movies and stuff like that. So when I was a kid, I was like really into that. And so that was the first kind of exposure to it. But in college, I got really into Eastern philosophies and Eastern religions and started looking more into that, reading more about it. And meditation is a huge part of that. So I always saw it as kind of like connected with like mysticism and spirituality and things like that. And never really kind of thought of it so much as like a practical, more like material world sort of thing rather than like the kind of the metaphysical spiritual world sort of thing. And it wasn't until so my attention deficit disorder was first treated with medication. The first one made me very aggressive. So I stopped taking it. And then the next one I took would give me migraines after about a week of continuous usage. So like I found that like medication was not really helping with my attention deficit. So I started trying to look for like alternative methods of dealing with it. And also, when I would, early days of running my own business, there were times where like, just emotionally, I'd be kind of in like a little bit of a slump. And I found meditation as a tool that was really, really helpful to kind of just get a little bit of like emotional distance from things that were happening, as well as a way to slow down my mind when it was racing and going in 1,000 different directions. So I began to see it as a little bit more of a practical tool, and then started to get into, with later versions of iPhone and things like that. There were more apps or more things. Got into first the Waking Up app, which is a guided meditation. Then I switched over to the Calm app. And, I've just been really utilizing it sparingly, kind of in like 2 to 5 minute bursts as a means of kind of interrupting a pattern of thought that's taking me to a place that's not productive for where I'm trying to go for the day.
It's interesting, like I think, because Jeff, you're getting really at sort of the meat of it and how it's definitely benefited me in terms of being able to create this separation between sort of my thoughts and myself, I guess. And when we talk about things as well, like how to reduce stress, anxiety, get better sleep, even with focus and creativity, and even in the realm of like becoming more self-aware, I found that meditation is like Jeff, as you said, it's a tool or it's a practice, really. And that what I found though is that there's a lot of different ways that you can, like you said, Jeff, like to achieve those things. But meditation for me, I found to be like the most personal and the most effective for me. Like I can actually feel differently when I'm in a tough conversation, when I need to face something or when I need to express myself a little bit differently. Like I find that meditation, being able to have it as a practice, has been really, really powerful. So there's one thing I wanted to say too about meditation. I mean, we're talking about these areas, we talk about mindset, we're talking about focus, stress, anxiety, like a lot of things that are going on in our minds. And meditation, I find, is kind of like this way to, it's a time to practice how to really use the mind. The mind actually is, what I found it to be, and I'm curious about how you guys express it as well. Like Sari said, I can't stop it. Like, how do I stop it? Like I see the mind as like this really, really amazing, sharp tool that we have. And it's like a knife, for example. Like it can cut things and it can do all kinds of stuff. But a knife that's under control and just like this the whole time, all day, every day, it's uncontrollable. You're cutting yourself, you're cutting other people, you're cutting things that you're trying to build. Like that's your mind at work as a tool. But meditation is like a way to practice really just how to see the tool and then how to use it to your advantage, like use it for what you need it to do. And the better you get at, let's say, quote unquote, meditation or more practiced in it, there's, I think, a correlation between how you're able to make better choices in your life versus reacting to things, which usually it's a lot of times the cause of stress, anxiety, loss of focus, like loss of drive to want to do anything. We're connecting to something else from our mind energy. And what's been powerful for me is to actually notice this separation between myself and my thoughts, because we're not truly our thoughts. Like, I have crazy thoughts all the time. Like, I think crazy shit. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen or that I need to act on it. It's just a thought. It's just happening. But it's happening for a reason. And anyway, that's sort of kind of how I start to see what meditation actually is. So I'm curious to you guys as well. Like, how have you understood it to be? How would you define it? How would you describe it, let's say, to a fifth grader?
So I just also want to point out real quick that Jack, if you can see the comment up there and everything, agrees with Sarah about the thought and concept of having difficulty emptying or calming the mind. So I want to turn over to Sarah to kind of pick up your thread, and then I'll jump in afterwards.
Yeah, so I guess I'm my concern with it is that I don't really know what it is. Like I feel like I've put it on a pedestal of it has to be this like spiritual amazing moments, and I'm gonna just leave like with my life changed forever. And I think what I'm so excited about for today is, Parchelle, for you to like tell me what to do, because I'm such a practical person that I feel as if I don't really know what to do, and therefore I don't necessarily know what it is, if I'm being honest. Like to me, it seems like a time, right, where I would be calm and peaceful, and I would be reflective of my thoughts and grateful. But I'll be honest, like beyond that, I'm like, okay, so if I take 5 minutes to be calm and be at one with my thoughts, then I've meditated. Like, is that it? I guess it's more of a question back to you. Honestly, I don't have a good definition of it, to be fair.
So I'll just chime in real quick, because I totally get this, because I'm an ambitious, goal-oriented type person. So like I want to like win meditation, but like that's kind of not how it works, right? So
I want to be like the best at it.
Yeah, like I'll give you a new frame, because like I think because of the things I read early on, like I was like in pursuit of enlightenment, right? Like I wanted it to be this thing where I reached nirvana. That's kind of the frame I was in. And I don't think I got nearly as much usefulness out of meditation when I was in that mind state as I did when I started to look at it through a different lens. So the lens that I started to look at it was, it's basically like mental training, for lack of a better term. That like, so like, take meditation off the table for a second. When you practice your one-liner, or when you practice your material that you're going to give in a talk, it becomes more second nature to you. It's like you're creating new grooves in the, using the neuroplasticity of your brain, right? And what I've found the benefit of meditation and just mindfulness training in general is like, it's not that you're going to be able to turn off your thoughts. Like you're not going to like get there. Like what you're doing is you're not trying to, there's not a win there. There's a letting go there, right? Mm-hmm. There's an observation. There's a new way of thinking about your thoughts, because what you begin to notice is that you're not thinking your thoughts. Your thoughts are happening, and then you can kind of watch them happen, and then you can kind of decide what to do with some of them. Sometimes they benefit you, sometimes they don't. And this is a lot of the same thing that like really is, if you take meditation off the table, there's a lot of the subject matter that I talk about in the Superhero Institute with like the whole becoming superhuman model is like, you're building new skills, you're training new ways. And mindfulness is the ability to kind of slow down and not be so reactionary, and start to have a little bit more agency around the things that you think, the things that you do, and train your brain to go in different ways. So it's like, is there a value in reading for 2 minutes? Of course there is, because you read in those 2 minutes and like you might learn something, right? In the same way, like if you have 5 minutes of wholly like unsuccessful meditation, you still did 5 minutes of unsuccessful meditation that the next time will get easier and will get easier. And I'll tell you the easiest way to start to actually see the change. So I got this app called Waking Up. It's by Sam Harris, and it's guided meditations. And I did I think like 35 straight days of meditation. And what you notice is in like the first like 2 or 3 days, you're frustrated. Like you can't quite grapple with it. And a certain point will come where you're like, oh, I got this. I'm getting good at meditation. And then you won't again, because you'll try to extend it a little further or something. Maybe you'll, instead of 5 minutes, you'll go to 10 minutes or 10 to 15. And then your brain will start to go haywire, or you'll actually be honest with yourself that your mind wasn't really clear for the full 5 minutes you thought it was. It was really probably about 45 seconds before your brain just started going haywire again. So the key isn't to get to a point where you can say like, oh, well, I just shut my thoughts off entirely. I took 10 minutes. I was blank. I came back. I'm like a guru. I don't think that's the real value in the meditation. I think you have to think of it as like, Parchelle, you said it best. It's a practice. It's a thing that you practice. You do it. It's not a game. It's a practice.
That's so helpful, Jeff, because for me, I do, like a workout program. So I'll do like a 30 days of this and 45 days of this. And I'm like, okay, I did the workout and I'm done, and I'm goal oriented. So I think that's a really smart way to do it. You're never done. And I'm trying to accomplish something and maybe, yeah.
I get you. If there's someone who gets you, I get you.
I know.
Like everything is I'm leveling up daily. That's my goal, is like, what did I learn today? What did I accomplish? And like you sit down for meditation, you're like, all right, great, I'm going to crush this 10 minute meditation. And you're like, no, it's not how this works. You're going to let go for 10 minutes of trying to crush something. And you're going to try and give your brain a break from running from one thing to the next to the next. You're going to take a minute to just say like, oh, what am I thinking? Oh, that's odd. That's unique that went by. What was I just feeling there? Oh, that's unique. Do I have to feel that way, or can I feel some way different? So it's like, it's the pause button. It's not the fast forward or the play button.
And that's a hard button for me to press. Yeah. Go ahead, Parchelle.
No, I was going to say it was definitely like that for me too. It was like something to conquer, something to achieve, something to be the best at. But it's really not about that. My experience as well is that when it comes to just understanding, like we're all entrepreneurs and business owners, and so we have goals that we want to hit and achieve. And for all of us, I think we know probably what that one big goal is to do that kind of scares you and freaks you out. If you were giving advice to someone who was going to make that journey to get that result, your answer would be very objective, just like, this is what you do. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Now, we already know that, right? That we could advise someone else, but when it comes to ourselves, it's our mind. It's the story that we play out, this perspective that we have on things that makes us turn away from it. I mean, literally, as soon as I have the idea, I start to think of like all these reasons why it can't happen. Excuses like, well, it's Tuesday though, and I usually don't do this till Thursday, but and I go through all of these things to keep me from doing what is the very first objective step to get to this goal. And what's really happening in that, it's a play with your mind. It's a play with sort of these things that come up. And unless you're able to separate yourself from them, you're always going to be caught up. And your mind wants to keep you in a very structured, regimented process because, we kind of are like operating systems. So it's trying to keep everything functioning the same way to create rhythms, patterns, and that way it can predict itself better. But as soon as we start to say, well, I want to go this way, I want to explore past that, beyond the structure, do something new, your whole system's going to go haywire. But the gift, what I feel like the meditation allows you to do is to just lessen that blow and make it an easier transition to make the very next step that you make. Know that it is the right step for you with more confidence. So love about meditation is that honestly you can't get it wrong, right? There's nobody grading you to say that you're doing something wrong or right. Like it's just you and you. Like you cannot get it wrong. You can't get it right either, and it never gets done. It's just a process of if you're in a human body, right, and you have life, you have a soul, like this is going to be part of your experience. And so if you want to be intentional about what happens in your life versus just reacting to things, like you have to take control over this thing called the mind. And the other beautiful thing too is that it doesn't cost you any money to do. And and it's always available like 24/7, when you're in the bed, when you're driving, when you're anywhere, like whenever you can just tap into just a place of just stillness and not engaging with the mind or just observing the mind. It's really interesting, and you can take it a step further and make it feel like you're like watching a movie of yourself. Sometimes I think of it that way. It's like I'm watching this play of myself that's happening, and it's just about creating separation. And I think what that helps us to understand and evolve into is like who we really are, because it can't just be flesh and blood. You know, it can't just be the physical stuff that it can't, to me, right? To me,
Yeah.
it has to be more than that. So
could you talk a little bit about what you just said about like it can happen really at any moment? I think what I struggle with is I have a schedule and I'm doing what I'm doing at a certain time and I'm on the productivity train all day. And so I have allotted time in my day to exercise, and I would sort of attach the meditation maybe towards the end of that. But are you saying it's not necessarily something that you plan ahead for? It's available to you in the moments that you need it?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of like Abraham Hicks, and one of the things that's taught about through her teaching is like before you go into what she calls like a next segment, you kind of set an intention and you bring sort of that stillness or whatever you believe that you have, I guess, through meditation or what have you, that stillness, you bring that into that next portion of the day.
I love that.
That's been really helpful. So it's like, for me, when I meditate, especially at the start of the day, it's like I'm able to kind of just carry a piece of that into the rest of the day with me. And then I oftentimes too, like before a really important call or a sales meeting like that, I've also been in the last year just like 3 to 5 minutes, just to sit and chill and be quiet. Then I take that into the meeting, because what I look at in sales meetings too is mind energy of like desperation and like, okay, if I don't get this deal, you know, all hell's gonna break loose or whatever. Like that's been a mentality that I've had, you know, approaching my business and doing sales. But now, since I've been implementing just that 5 minutes before a sales presentation, that stuff isn't even there. Like it's not even as prominent anymore. Like, because I really feel like in the very early days of my business and getting going, I was very desperate and just trying to get anything and everything. And I think it really repelled people. You know, I probably would have got more business had I not just been so into wanting it so badly. So it's things like that. It helps me to separate. You know, I can get on the line with somebody for a 6-figure deal. I'm going to do my best to try and bring that same stillness into that conversation, because, you know, I think that it benefits me and benefits the other person as well, because I'm also able to listen, you know, and that's like another key thing too, that meditation helps me to do more, is like actually listen and be present with people. Because what our mind energy in that point is to think of what to say next, or to think of like, what am I going to think, or response going to be, like you're thinking it while the person's talking. But if I'm able to focus in and actually listen, it's a better use of my time than that person's time.
Yeah, let me just real quick add a couple things on it, because there's a couple threads that Parchelle opened up that I want to jump on. So the first thing is Sarah, the nature of your question makes me think that you might be thinking of meditation as an event rather than a thing that you do. So let me give you a couple examples that may be they may be like relevant or familiar to you. So when I cook, I am just fully present in the cooking. I'm thinking about how I'm cutting my onion. I'm thinking about how long I should saute or sear a piece of the meat, whatever it is, right? When I go snowboarding, I'm fully present in thinking about where I'm going to make my next turn, who's in front of me, smelling the air. I'm just fully there. I'm not in my head. I'm not thinking. And to a point that Parchelle was making, in a sales meeting, there's the meditation of, prior to going into this, let me take a moment to myself and think and center myself and think about my intention meditation. And then there's being in the meeting meditation, where you're actually present in the meeting. You're hearing what the other person's saying. You're not in your head. You're with them in this moment. That mindfulness practice is where flow comes from. It's where we're in that moment and we're fully present. You've probably heard that expression a multitude of times, like, oh, I felt like you're just really present with me, or I felt really present with you. Right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the point is that is mindfulness, right? Like you may be doing it unintentionally. And I think the practice of mindfulness is being able to do it more intentionally in those moments. So looking for those opportunities for active meditation rather than thinking of it as like an event meditation, like, oh, I have to go set aside 10 minutes in a cave. It's not like that. Like you could be meditating right now by, before you say your next thing, just taking a breath and thinking about, where am I? How do I feel? What's going on in my brain? What did he just say that I might want to respond to? So that's the first thing I want to pick up on as a thread. The second thing that Parchelle said that I want to pick up on that is one of the things that I really appreciate about mindfulness and meditation. You know, my purpose in business is not just so I can help people make more money. Like that's part of it. But I want people to appreciate their impact. I want people to think about how they can connect with other people. As a leader, how do you impact your people? Like as a salesperson, what are you selling to people? How are you making that solution relevant? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And mindfulness, like the act of stopping, pausing, thinking, gets you out of like the identity role that you're in, right? Like I'm Jeff Gibbard, consultant, right? You're Sarah Hennison, productivity coach, right? Like you're Parchelle Tashi, the video producer, the chief video officer, right? Like this is who we are, right? But meditation, mindfulness, like stopping, pausing, observing your thoughts, breathing, it's this weird disconnect where, to Parchelle's point about like watching a movie, you kind of get a disconnect from that ego of like, this is who I am to this is where I am. And it's a real shift in like how you then take your next steps, right? Because you're not in the automatic response system of like, this is who I am, so this is how I behave. And instead you get like a moment to actually think, well, who do I want to be in this moment and what's going on, and really being present in that moment. So it's a real humanizing practice that I think is really beneficial for people to do. So just on a very practical, like, you know, we have business people that listen to this show and watch the show. Like they might be thinking like, oh, well, I don't want to get into like the woo woo as Parchelle said at the beginning, right? Like maybe they're like, oh, I don't need to meditate. I'm busy business person thing. But like, it actually gives you an opportunity to like, think about who you are, like what's your life about in this moment, and then like go into that thing more powerfully.
That is hugely helpful. And I've actually never heard it explained that way. And you are right. And you know me well. And then I was like, okay, I'll have 10 minutes for my meditation, get it done, check it off the list. I did it. Right. This is just hugely helpful to know that like, that's not really the right way to think about it. And I actually do think I'm a very mindful person. I think coaches really need to be, and to Parchelle, what you were saying, have that ability to listen. But the way you're talking about it is just really different from how I was approaching it. So thank you. That's really helpful.
We'll also just try not to think of it as like the wrong way to approach it, the right way to approach it. Like however you do it, it's however you do it. It's more about like expanding how you might think about it, that like you could do it like, you know, while you're doing your dishes. You could like, I find putting away laundry very meditative. I find it very relaxing to try and fold every single shirt the same way. It relaxes me. I find I'm very present in it. Like I'm not thinking about all the other things in my life. I'm thinking about folding that shirt. And you know, I all of my favorite activities in life, I would say, all fall into that category of like, it's a thing I can get lost in. It's a thing where I'm fully present in it, and I'm not thinking about all the other multitude of things. So that tends to be where I find the value in it. And I'd imagine, given that you and I are very similar in that, like, crush our goals, you know, take down the to-do list, like fit it in. And like my meditation typically is like, I set aside a 10-minute window in the morning. That's when I do it. But then you have to kind of remind yourself that that's like the event meditation, right? That's setting aside the time for it. And you can do that. And that's great. But like, because that's like training, that's dedicated training. But there's also the dedicated training of like, you know, meditating while you're doing whatever. And actually, I kind of had this recognition because in the Waking Up app, he alluded to something known as walking meditation, which is where you actually meditate while going for a walk, and you just meditate. And then I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about it's like an idea where like if you're trying to work through a problem, what you do is you take one aspect of that problem, one sliver of it, and then you go on a walk and you meditate on that one problem. You meditate about that one problem. Any other thoughts you clear out, you focus on the one problem. So like you're trying to figure out like, what's my tagline for my website, right? You might take 3 or 4 days and just every morning when you go for a walk with the dog, you're just focused on solving that problem. It's the only thing you think about. You're mindful about resolving that. And that's just another way of using the practice. So I guess the point is there's no right, wrong. There's just like all of these ways that you can do the same idea.
That's so interesting because I was thinking now I'm excited to meditate because I feel like I could accomplish something. I think before I was feeling like I needed to be in this state of like relax, calm, and my mind is clear. But you're saying like you can use meditation to even think creatively or solve a problem. Or Parchelle, you said earlier to focus. Like that's okay, that's cool. I think I don't know what it is, honestly. I think that is part of what I am struggling, is I haven't defined it well or the right way.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's hard to really define because it's, to me, it gets into a different dimension of like how we are as human beings. Like I said, we're not just flesh and blood. There's another part of ourselves. And that other part of ourselves, we can't see, taste, smell. It is nothing like this current reality. So there's a lot of things that I think don't really have the best of words to describe like what it is, because it is something that, you know, doesn't require a definition. It doesn't require sort of like these structures. But something that you said made a lot of sense. And I remember, because I've also been learning about meditation from different people. And when you talk about like this sort of quote unquote mindless state or being in a point where you're not thinking, I've heard it described as like being at the point of zero. So like if you imagine a number line where you have like positive numbers and left, and then, you know, you end up at zero. Zero is a very neutral state. Nothing needs to happen. Nothing else is going on. There's nothing to happen next. It's chilling at zero. And we have the ability to be in that state. And at that state where there are no words, there are no definitions, we get to up-level ourselves, if you will, around sort of the other part of who we really are. And that starts to show up and creep up into our actual physical reality, in a sense, when you think about how we can bring things about in our life and what have you. I heard sort of the way to understand like that state of like being mindless is almost like imagine if you had to, you know, it happens, you wake up in the middle of the night, you have to go to the bathroom and you're completely like, you're awake, but you're asleep, but you're aware that you're at the bathroom and there's nothing else, there's nothing else in mind. That almost is really, really close to, I think, sort of this state of being completely at zero because you're not fully asleep, you're fully awake in terms of engage with who am I, you know, what is my job, what I have to do today, what's on my to-do list. Like none of that stuff is active, but then you're also not fully asleep and unconscious. Mm-hmm. It's this middle state where you can start to understand and practice this part of who you are that we forget about. Like that's to me is the beauty of it. It's like it gives me time to focus in on that part of myself to know that like this exists too. And in fact, if I can figure this out, everything else will make sense because it all stems from here. From this point comes my thoughts. My thoughts then determine my actions. My actions determine my behaviors, my results, my life, the people around me. All of these things stem back to how I think, how I choose, like what I want to do. So if I can be clear about that and not allow it to be some automatic autopilot that my parents, you know, and my family and other people set me on, like I have a better shot of getting what I want in this life. And I can live my life most authentically from that place as well. So that's how I see it. It's like kind of getting to that place. And Jeff, you mentioned like you can do it in other places too. So you can still carry that into it, into those other areas. And it doesn't have to be something, like I said, it's you know, you do it right or you do it wrong. I just love that it's free. It doesn't, you know, time for it. Like it's always available. It's literally better than any coach I could ever sign up for. It's better than any program I listen to. It's better than any YouTube video. It's better than, I don't know. It's better than my best friend who loves me the very most, giving me the best advice. It is just quality time with myself and the highest part of myself. And the more time I spend there, the more I can see more clearly what I want and how to get to it, because all junk isn't, you know, I still have to fight it, but I know how to fight it a little bit better because I spend time with it.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I've heard it described as like, you know, we spend a lot of time working out like our physical body, like we lift weights, and Sarah, this is particularly relevant for you, right? Like you work out regularly, you're working out your body to make sure that you stay fit, that you stay healthy, but it's not really common practice for us to talk about working out our minds in the same way. And that's that whole point of like the mental training, right? The mindfulness practice is your ability to like work on the ability to, you kind of said it at the beginning, right? Like the inability to calm your thoughts or empty your head. Like you only get better at that by practicing that. And like, if you can do it for 3 minutes, that's awesome. And once you can do it for 4 minutes, that's even better. And the more you can do it and the more you can just remain present and calm those thoughts and witness them, the more you then are able to take that skill that you're practicing in this, you know, mindfulness, this event-based mindfulness of like, I'm sitting here for 10 minutes, and you can bring that into your daily routine so that as you're, you know, having a conversation with your mother and she says a certain something and you're like, oh, that made me feel a certain kind of way, you're able to go, okay, and kind of just like sit into it and think about it and like give yourself a little bit of emotional distance about what your reaction to it is. And again, like I think, you know, we talk a lot about business here on the show, and I think just turning it back to that, I think we have so many instances where we get upset about something a coworker said or something a client says, or we feel pressure, or we feel fraud syndrome or the imposter syndrome, like we're not good enough at a thing. And like, we question whether or not the thing we're doing matters. And like all of the little tiny voices that are coming up in our head, mindfulness is our opportunity to just like sit with them for a bit. Say, what do you think about this? Like, do we think this is real? And in my experience, the more you focus on them, the more they dissipate. So like, if you try to like really focus on that one thought that just popped in your head that's like tormenting you, you focus on it and it just seems to kind of like evaporate like smoke. And that's been helpful when I'm in a particularly bad way mentally about something that's going on. I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious, feeling burnt out. Like it's an opportunity to interrupt that and say like, I can choose different things right now.
Yeah. It's so interesting because as you're describing some of this, I'm saying, well, I do that. And I am mindful. And so maybe I have been doing some meditation. I think I just have not had a definition for this time or these moments.
Yeah. And maybe you didn't have like a deliberate practice around it. And like the thing is that this is a thing that kind of Parchelle's been saying, like it's free. It's a thing we've got access to all the time, right? So like all human beings have access to this ability. You can like, you don't need anything for it. It's even better than soccer. You don't even need the ball. Like you can just sit there literally at any point, anywhere on the bus. You could be in a plane. You could be standing. You could be doing cartwheels. Like you still have access to what's going on in your head, right? So you've probably been doing it, but at the same time with all those things that I just explained or that I just listed, like there are ways to do those things better, or there's tricks to it, or there's like ways of refining it. So like, I look at the whole, like even studying meditation as like seeing what other people say about it is just to give you new tools in your kit to do it maybe more effectively, or ways of thinking about it that help you to relieve some of the pressure you might be putting on yourself, which again, all of the things that you're saying are like the things that I said at the beginning of any of my mindfulness journey at all was like, oh my God, I'm not doing it well enough. Like I'm not far enough along in this practice. Like, you know, they're not going to respect me at the ashram or something. Like I was never a part of any of that. Like it was all just pressure I was putting on myself to be that. But you know, there's no contest.
Well, and it's funny you say that because like I have a Peloton, right? And I love the Peloton and I get my goals. So they rolled out in 2020, they rolled out the mindfulness and the meditation part of the app. So now you can go and you can do one meditation or two meditations. So there's like in March, I just signed up to do like 7 meditations in 7 days, right? Because I want to get the sticker that comes with that, the award. But
Achievement unlocked.
Exactly. But what you're saying is really shifting my perspective on that, because it's not about that. It's more, Parchelle, you're saying, like, tap into it when you need it. It's not about like, oh, I achieved it in March. Okay, I'm done. I did it in 7 days.
You could. I just think it'll make it more difficult on you. Like the harder you try to, like, it's like trying to hold on to this moment, right? Like, try to hold on to this moment. Like, just grab it. Just grab it and don't let it go. It's gone. Like, it's always going to be gone, because that's like how we perceive reality. It's how our minds are working. It's how we see our thoughts. Like, all those things, they're just happening, right? So the more you try to, like, force it to happen, the more frustrated you're going to wind up becoming, in the same way that it would be difficult to grab onto, like, this moment right now, because it's impossible. So if you just let go and let into it, it becomes a lot easier. So it's like, you don't want to fight your way upstream. Just, like, lay on your back and let it take you.
It's so interesting. I had chronic insomnia for a lot of years, right? And I tried everything. And one of the things was this meditation sleep app. And I would lay there, and after 3 minutes and be like, well, it's not working. I'm not asleep yet. And then 6 minutes, like, oh, this meditation for sleep is so dumb. I'm still awake. Because I think I wasn't, like, releasing to the moment. I'm just saying, like, oh, the app said it would work in 10 minutes or less, and it's not working for me. But I was looking at a result, not at a moment.
Yeah. And I love when the moment, it is like you kind of get to a certain point where you're focused in, like you're in the zone. I don't know if you guys saw the Disney movie called Soul, and how the different characters, when they got into the zone, they were in this other realm, and I think that meditation is one of the tools that helps us get some, where we're completely present, what we're doing, not just in the things that we love, but in everything, taking a shower, going to get your lunch or whatever. Like, we can enjoy and be present with each of the moments of our lives. And when the tough crap happens, we're also equipped on how to deal with that. We're equipped because we can perceive the story. We can tell the story how we want to. And you get better storytelling capabilities through your ability to meditate. It's great inspiration, because you can tell a really great story just looking at it without being the character involved, if that makes sense.
Quick question for you, Parchelle. Are there any tools that you would recommend for someone starting out, or, like, do you use any of the apps, or, are there any books or anything that you would point people towards as a good starting point?
Yeah, I definitely love starting out with apps. Like, I started out with Headspace. I think it's like a popular meditation app that people have used. And that was pretty cool, because it's like a very easy way to start to get into understanding your thoughts and stuff. So Headspace is a really good app. But then besides that, sometimes just sitting in silence, I do for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I set the time. But I also recommend just having something possibly to listen to. Sometimes it's helpful if you're in a certain environment. So I also have my headset, and I play either a guided meditation, which sometimes is really good and really helpful. And then also just like nature sounds, music, water, things like that also, help me to, just be in a place to really observe my thoughts. I have recently too, if anybody would be interested, I took up a float tank session. So if you guys have heard of float tank spas, where you're in this tank and it's like, maybe 1.5 feet of water, and it has a bunch of salt in it, and it's enough to where you can literally just float. So it's like you're floating on a bed of water. And it has a lot of benefits around the things that we talked about with meditation as well, in terms of like sleep, anxiety, stress, creativity, and just helping you just to relax. It's just another way of doing it. And, it's good for the brain, all that kind of stuff too. So do that also. Have you guys tried that before, heard of it?
I've heard of it. I've never done it. Also, I just want to put this comment up here from Jack. So Jack, thank you for tuning in and for listening. We appreciate it. It's very cool. It means a lot. So to the float tank, I have a buddy who's done it. It's like the sensory deprivation of it. Like you're in darkness, right? There's no sound. So it's like you're turning off all your senses, which I've heard is actually like kind of trippy and crazy. But I've heard it's really cool. I don't even know where there's one around us or around me, that is. But I've never done it. But I've wanted to for a while. Sarah, have you ever heard of that or done that?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never done it. The closest thing I've gotten is the chiropractor had the water bed. And actually, it was interesting because when I used to go to the chiropractor all the time before COVID, he would have on like this calming music. He had, the stim, and he had that water bed we would lay on. And I often laid there thinking like, well, maybe I should put my earbuds in and like listen to a podcast and learn something, or I wish I could write something down right now. But it was healthy for me to just lay there even at the chiropractor and have a few moments of peace. Right. I mean, and knowing like it's okay to have those moments. Like Tim actually said it to me a couple of weeks ago. He's like, you don't have to be productive all the time.
He's right.
Yeah, I've heard the quote that says that whatever's effortless, or when you're in a point of just like giving no effort at all, but you can still do whatever you're doing really, really well, that's truly natural for you. Like effortlessness is that. And so I say that to say that when we are kind of free of a lot of that energy, it's like, I don't know, you're just in a state of just no effort. And somehow your heart's still beating. Somehow the planet is still rotating on some weird axis floating in the sky, right? In the galaxy. Like all these things are still happening and you're making no effort. That means something. Like it's just like the grandness of it. It's like, oh my God, like we must really be something at a natural state that's much more powerful than we, I think, know about, as we are right now. So
it's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm thankful for this conversation for sure, and thankful to everybody who joined in. So
thank you, Jack. Like those are great comments, and it's fun to have the participation. We love that.
Yeah, for sure. That really makes a difference.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening to this. Hopefully you didn't think it was too woo-woo. I think I have the tendency to be a little woo-woo sometimes, but it's okay. I love it.
Balance it out with the practical. We're a good combo on that. No, I thought it was awesome. And I'm really glad you brought up the topic. It's been on my mind. I've been mindful of it lately. And I think that it's very cool to connect. And somebody just commented from Facebook. Very cool to hear. Great to hear about life outside of work too. And I think that's important for us to like touch on more than just work, because I think we are more than just work. We are more than what we do for a living. And I think it's important for us to remind ourselves of that and talk about those things. And that's obviously a big part of the work that I do. So Parchelle, I really appreciate you bringing up the topic, and I appreciate you coming in and asking a lot of questions about it.
And I think, to be fair, like you often feel like, oh, I should know about that, like everybody else does, and you're afraid to ask questions. And I think just as an encouragement, like it's awkward for me to be like, I don't know what this is really, but I think that's where you learn. And there's no bad questions. And I've learned that like the more I get so much more out of conversations when I'm not afraid to ask questions and say, I don't know about that. So just to encourage people to like keep asking questions, even if you feel silly asking like I did today.
And this one's a good one too, because it can feel very inaccessible sometimes, right? Like it can feel like, oh, like there's this clique of people who like really get meditation and like I don't, and like I'm not a part of that and whatever. And I think for us to have just a very practical, real conversation about like everyday application and make it like within reach. Because I mean, I think Parchelle, it's one of the things that you did really nicely in this is like you kept coming back to like it's free, it's right there, like at any time. And I think that's important for people to recognize is like you don't have to like go to a mountain retreat on a 30-day meditation, silent meditation to get some value out of it. Like you can just do it before a meeting and like calm yourself and go in there and be more productive or powerful, So I appreciate that we had that conversation. So before we go, we're going to do our what are you all into? But before we even get to that, just last points, Parchelle, since you brought this conversation in, is there anything you want to wrap on before we wrap up the conversation today?
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, like meditation, if it seems like it's something that is far away from you or you still don't get it, I would encourage you just to remember, like you're already doing it. Meditation is just where you're placing your focus and how you're doing it. So it's just a matter of, are you choosing where that focus is? So we're already doing it. We're already doing it. And I think most times we call it worry, anxiety, stress. Like that's where, I think in autopilot sometimes we can be. But I just love that this gives me and us, all of us, like a path to, I don't know, just to have a better focus and to be more present in things that we do. So thanks.
Dang it.
Yeah, I definitely took that away from it. So thank you for saying that. That's really cool.
So Sarah, I'm going to put you on the spot for what are you into this week?
So kind of a la the meditation, I didn't really know that I needed a break, and I go like morning, noon, and night, weekend. Like I love my work, so I just like go for it. And this weekend on Friday afternoon, my husband and I decided to leave town. We went to Rhode Island for the weekend, and it was just such a change of scenery that like I didn't even know I needed it. And I actually didn't work all weekend. And I'm a productivity coach and I preach this, and I like needed to practice what I preach a little bit, and it was cool. And so I guess, maybe there's more restrictions with COVID and things, but like, if you need a change of scenery, take it and do it. And it was just the most revitalizing. I feel so refreshed, coming into Monday today, having just had a little change of scenery. So just do it.
It's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for all of you listening on the podcast at a later date from when this was broadcast, and all of you tuning in live, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for tuning into the Heroic Council. This has been another episode. It's been me, Jeff, with Sarah and Parchelle, talking about meditation. If you like this episode, please share it with people that you know and love. Come back for more episodes every Monday at 2 p.m. Live, or you can catch up on it on any podcast app that you use. And we'll see you in the next one. Appreciate you so much, and catch you later.